Well, should we get into this whole side story with Kyle and his talk that he had with
Oh, and
Joe?
David Joe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can
Yeah,
chat about it a
yeah.
little bit. Um,
What did you think?
I was surprised. I will say that. Like, I was very surprised. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a unexpected backstory. And then I saw his Instagram post. I think it was today, just talking about everything. And I was like, oh, this is great. It was, I commented on our behalf.
Yes.
I think I said thanks for sharing the story, but I think it's much needed. Like that sort of candid talk about like racial profiling and different things like that because he is very right. You can't
Yeah.
always do the same, and you can get different treatment. And it's I have a father, I have brothers, they have stories, and it's it's
Yeah.
it's not okay, and it's not cool, and sometimes people don't acknowledge that it exists. But I also didn't expect him to be like a little rambunctious, teen. And even like in law school, I was like, Kyle. That's when you're supposed to be moving, getting your life together. He was still trying to like, but you could tell he's like a smart, intelligent guy. But it's like maybe the maturity wasn't there yet at that time,
Mhm.
even though he was moving forward into like this professional career space. His maturity still had to catch up. So
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if it was the people he was around. I mean, I'm sure it was the people he was around, right? Like if you're getting in trouble with them and you think you can get away with it because you're with them. Sometimes that does happen. And then you meet the law and you realize that you can't. It's a different story. But what I thought
yeah.
was interesting about the conversation was I was just wondering like what parts were edited out because
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like his point in bringing it up was the fact that he was triggered, right? And like what
Mm-hmm.
about this dynamic with David was triggering, and then if you talk about being a black person in the criminal justice system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like what that looks like and what aggression looks like and how you're talked to. I worked in a prison before and I've seen guards that aren't very nice, and there is differential treatment based on race and things like that. And so I was wondering what parts were missed out because Joe said,
Yeah.
we got the same blood. Like, I get it, in so many words. And so I was wondering if it was
Mhm.
something that he specifically touched on, or if he just kind of went a very politically correct as a
Yeah.
lawyer, right? Way
Mhm.
to make sure he didn't say too
Yeah.
much. But
Yeah.
as soon as he said like, I'm triggered, and then he said, I'm a
Mhm.
little jailbird. I said, yeah, I bet, because
Mhm.
David was coming on strong and he was aggressive.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and he was also
Yeah,
aggressive
'cause
towards Joe. So
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I have no clue what they edited out, but what you just said makes so much sense, makes so much sense that's kind of the missing pieces of that story because it did feel like it jumped a little bit in how he was telling it. And
yeah,
so that makes a lot of sense that it could have been that was where that was what caused him to bring up the conversation and just say
hmm,
like that's triggering, like when I see that sort of um aggression
right,
from
right,
be a white
yeah,
male.
yeah.
And so
Yeah, and I
yeah,
know you had
but
even mentioned, like you didn't feel like he did enough in that conversation, or like he was kind of showing his hand because he was a little flustered. And so it
you talking
would,
about Kyle in the previous
yeah, in the
episode.
previous
Oh,
episode. So I was
I
like,
was
it
like,
would
wait a
make,
second, girl. I was like, I thought you were talking about the episode just now with
yeah,
Joe
no, no,
in
no,
that
no,
conversation.
yeah, no. So I was like, it would make
Um,
sense, right, that he was having a hard time with
mhm,
like expressing himself and like still trying to
mhm,
maintain a very calm demeanor
mhm,
through that
mhm.
conversation.
Yeah, and he said something, he was like, "I don't like confrontation,"
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, when he said that, I think he said it in this episode, I was like, "Yeah, no, it's giving you don't like confrontation, that's
Yeah.
for sure." He also seems like a happy-go-lucky sort of guy, like, he seems like somebody who, gets along with a lot of people and don't really have a lot of conflict. He just seems
Hmm.
like I said, young Barack, he seems like a
Right, right,
young
right.
Barack.
Yeah.
But
Shout
yeah,
out to Kyle.